Today we're going to be introducing culture's role in linguistic relativity, which is the weak version of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Recall that the strong version, linguistic determination, states that we cannot think about concepts we do not have a word for. It implies that you can perceive things differently based on the language you speak. In linguistic relativity, however, we will see how this may not be the case. Let's start with a little exercise. Take a decent look at the image. How many can you count? Now I know you're thinking this is probably a pretty easy task, but what if I told you to think about what it might be like if you didn't have a word for numbers? How would you think about counting if you didn't need exact numbers in your culture? This is exactly the case in the Daniel Everett study of the Piraha tribe, which is an example of a culture influencing counting systems. So the Piraha doesn't have any specific word for exact numbers. They have words for specific quantities. One word means one word means a few, and one word means many. On a counting study, Everett found that the Piraha had a near perfect performance on a one-to-one match test with numbers up to 10. So thinking of this data, how does this support linguistic relativity? What is linguistic relativity? It's best to understand culture's role in linguistic relativity through talking about the definition of it. Linguistic relativity is the weak version of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, stating that our language does not determine what we can think about, but it does affect it. Using this definition, how does this relate to the Piraha and Everett's findings? Think about how the words we have available in our language make it easier to think about certain concepts. So what is culture's role in linguistic relativity? We can see that linguistic relativity relates to the Piraha and Everett's findings because we can clearly see that without specific words for numbers, the Piraha still understand the idea conceptually. The culture they grew up in doesn't place importance on numbers, and this influences the way thought is driven. From his findings, Everett suggests that both language and thought are driven by the larger culture. Culture influences how time is conceptualized in language as well. English speakers conceptualize time as moving from left to right. Mandarin speakers, on the other hand, imagine the future as up and the past as down. Ultimately, we can clearly see the important role that culture plays in linguistic relativity because we see the influences other languages have on thought processes. To review, we can see that culture's role in linguistic relativity is very important because we can see that languages have a heavy influence on thought processes, and it heavily influences the way that people can think about specific ideas.